some of the things that Green Bay was throwing at you. Do you attribute it the same way, or do you think there's some other things that need to be fixed and addressed to get these guys blocked?
Yeah, I think, it's always a multitude of things. It's never just one thing, right? But, it's shown up probably about 3 times this year where we've had some issues in protection that are completely controllable. So for me, that starts, with me. I'm not doing something right. I'm not coaching something right. I'm not saying things in a way that needs to be interpreted the way it needs to be interpreted. Because honestly, the things that we missed in the game are things that D'Amico's been giving us day one in training camp. So it's stuff that I know they've seen and they've done and they've knocked out before. Obviously you're on the road, you're in Lambeau, communication's going to be hard. You got to strain in that regard, but we've been working on that part of it for 4 weeks. We've been working on what it's like on a road game, even when we have a home game. We've been straining on silent. We've been going on silent cadence even on weeks like this. So, that's been an emphasis for us. You see it in the pre-snap. Now we got to see it in the post-snap, and I got to find a way to get that out of our game.
Do you think it's the message being, do the players know what they're doing, or is it at the line of scrimmage, perhaps the message not getting to who it needs to get to?
Yeah, like I said, it's a multitude of things any given play, right? And I would say it's always a little bit of both in any given situation. I felt like, and we felt like on the sideline this last game, everyone was pretty clear on what was going on and the looks we were getting and where people were aligned. And I thought Juice and CJ were doing as good of a job as they could trying to get that communicated. We got to find a way to get that down the line if that is the issue. And if it's not the issue, like I said, we've been seeing these things since day one of training camp. We put the pieces of the puzzle together and still go execute, which is what we're expected to do.
Last year, Bobby, it looked like you all were running, quicker plays as far as more 3-step, less 7-step. It looked like this year you all are, the plays are longer developing. Is that what we're seeing, or am I looking at that wrong?
When your quarterback starts to get hit, that's what you're going to do, yeah. So we stopped doing some of this. We hit Dalton on a 7-step early in the game on an explosive, and then I think CJ got smacked 3 times in a row. And then if you still want to have a pass game, you got to find a way to still move forward and not backward. And, that's a strain to do that.
What's the line of thinking on the final offensive series, specifically the 3rd and 15?
Yeah. So the 3rd and 15, the starting point is, man, that's a bad call, right? So we go into it thinking hopefully we get inside leverage or off corner, really what they've shown in similar situations is 3 guys across the end zone, off corner, inside leverage on Tank. Gave him a route he scored on last year, really same part of the field. And then instead we got outside leverage press, which is hard. That's not what the route's for. They doubled Steph. So really for the quarterback, you got to get all the way to the backside answers, which would have been good on that play, but he's already been hit 12 times. He's not. It's everything trickles down in the NFL, right? So it's not always any one given play. I think what CJ did in that moment was 100% right. We can't hold on to the ball. We got to get the ball out of our hands and look be darned a little bit, So to me, it's the fact that we've had the protection issues early in the game that we're not confident being able to hang in the pocket. And then along the same lines, we're 1st and 10 from, I want to say, the 12-yard line, something like that, I think, was the first down. We call a run because Joe was in a groove. We get blown off the ball. Next thing you know, it's 2nd and 12. They run the same pressure. I call a run play we've called 5 times in the game. It was our best run by far, which is premier against the pressure. And, we executed it worse than we did the other 5 times. We lose 3 more yards, and now 3rd and 15's tough anyway. You know what I mean? So it was a bad situation all the way around.
Wasn't to get out of bounds. What is the ideal scenario of that play? Because a lot of times when we ask you about play calls, you say, and rightfully so, you say, well, obviously it didn't work, so I would have done it different. Mm-hmm. What is the ideal result of that play? Is it Tank? Is it a touchdown? And
yeah. Then Tank's not the only option on the play, right? Kind of like I talked through, but again, when you have protection issues and the quarterback doesn't feel like he can hang in the pocket long, that trickles down to a lot of stuff. It's one of those things. At the end of the day, I didn't call a good play. What they played is not at all what I called the play for, and that stinks for me as a coordinator to look at that and be like, man, this play call stinks. Like the players kind of got to save me here. And that happens sometimes. And sometimes you get the opposite. Sometimes it's end of game against Tampa Bay last year, and I call a play with really one option, and they play the coverage I'm hoping for, and we score a touchdown. So it's some give and take right there, and that's why, like in the NFL, it's so hard when you get in situations like that. I always look at what led to that situation, because really, I mean, if we're in 3rd and 8, if we're in 3rd and 7, I think all of us on offense feel very strongly we're in a good position right there.
How much leeway does go ahead, John.
Having said that, I don't think any of the receivers had any more than 28 yards. So does it all come back to the protection? Is why you all weren't able to have success downfield with Tank and with the stuff?
No, I wouldn't say it was all protection. I would say our pass game in general struggled. I didn't do a good job with the game plan in that regard. I don't think we went and executed well in really any regard across the board. I think our quarterback made a few special plays to keep us going in the pass game. But we were not throwing the ball well. I mean, we averaged 2.2 a throw or something like that. I mean, you can't, for us in our standard, we know that's not good enough. And it's been good for us to have some hard conversations about that, and look forward to getting better this week. And we got a new game that we get to go attack.
How malleable is what you guys do on offense throughout the course of a game, and specifically coming out of halftime? I don't know that coming out of halftime in the third quarter has gone really well for you guys that much this season.
No, it hasn't. That's been an emphasis for us. We've been talking about that really around the same time we started talking about being on the road. Let's hone in on how to use silent and how to make that a weapon for us and handle crowd noise and things like that. We've also emphasized coming out of half. And probably the game we emphasized it the most was New England, and that showed up, right? And we executed well. Defense helped us, gave us a short field. In this last game, we didn't. We came out, and I think the first play, again, they blew us off the ball on a run play, and that's not like we adjust scheme pretty consistently as we go through a game. I'd say every game, we react to what they're doing, they react to what we're doing, but it's never things we haven't seen before. So by and large, we're staying within the game plan. It's more we gotta find a way, and we're working on finding a way to make sure our mentality is right when we come out of the half, that we're ready to go.
We have time for 2 more. Bobby, how much leeway does CJ have to audible, and what is it going to take maybe to pick the tempo up on offense?
Tempo in what regard?
Maybe looks like sometimes the play coming out of the huddle is taking a long time to call the play in the huddle. By the time you get to the line, doesn't look like there's a lot of time to adjust the play or to even audible out of the play the defense has already had set.
Yeah, so a lot of times, that's a good question. A lot of times those go hand in hand, right? So like when we have if you have a play call that's fairly straightforward, that might not have a lot of demand on the quarterback or on other guys. A lot of times you're at the ball faster, the ball's being snapped faster, you're rolling faster. And then a lot of other times when the quarterback has a lot on his plate he has to handle, and that could be from a multitude of directions. It's going to take some more words, so he's going to be in the huddle a little bit longer. And then when we break the huddle, we got to make sure we're getting set so he can see it, because sometimes it's him just getting prepared for the play. Other times he might be going to a different play depending on what our look is. But those demand strain, in between plays in particular. I'd say our biggest thing is not necessarily from the huddle to the ball right now. It's getting into the huddle. Like when we make a play on offense, we have a tendency right now where we can get into the huddle later, even though CJ's ready. And that's been really a thing for us in practice this week is, hey, we got to go from one play to the next, to the next, to the next. We got to keep that tempo up so we can do these things to help empower people to be in good positions.
He does have the ability to be able to
audible. Yeah, I mean, it's play dependent, like it is really across the NFL. It's play dependent, but yeah, every quarterback does that.
Last one. All set?
Thanks, everybody.
He's on the team now.
Yeah, just obviously experience. Has played linebacker at a pretty high level in this league. So just an opportunity for him to come in and, kind of see how he fits in the system and fits in the room, and we'll go from there. So obviously kind of in the process of kind of learning what he does for us and how long he takes to adapt to our style and our calls and stuff. But, history of production and experience playing at a high level in this league. So good opportunity for us and for him.
What did you think of how Neville and Jake performed, and how's Henry doing? Because when you work back to the protocol, you got to get symptom free. You got to practice a couple days in a row before you can.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Henry's in the protocol. It's kind of out of our hands. Obviously, that's a built-in thing. So as he just goes through that process, like that's just kind of where we get told what we can and can't do with him and when he'll be ready to go. So I thought both those guys did a good job for us. Obviously, Nev, big play the first drive. A lot of tackles, physical player for us. So, and honestly, running the show. In terms of like having the green dot and communicating and getting everybody lined up. And honestly, Nev's kind of been doing that most of the year for us, like just training camp and going back to OTAs. He's been a real steady and consistent. And Jake, same thing. Made the big play on the TFL. Again, both those guys played real physical, did a good job in the run game. So we're happy how those guys performed.
You've been in the position and you've had the result on both ends where the opposing team has the ball, there's under 2 minutes left, and you got to call a defense. How much of it, what is it like having to call a defense in that type of situation where you have to balance being aggressive and not being too aggressive?
Yeah, it's so many factors that go into that, obviously, and with the time. And, this week, we knew that the kicker had a big leg too, so then how much field are you defending? And they had a timeout left, like all those things that were kind of factors. So, we had to play a little bit more aggressive. Honestly, we had our hands on 3 balls. The first play of the drive, we get a tip that has a chance. There's a one downfield, and even that last play that, D'Lo almost gets out and kind of fumbles it late. So, we tried to be tight enough in coverage. You can't just give a lot of space in those. We only had about 30 yards to defend probably. So, but just really, I think a couple of those plays we got to make. One of those plays to end the game.
Tim Settle missed a lot of training camp for you guys. He's hurt, and then a little bit of a low snap count early on. Then you guys start playing him a little bit more. What have you seen from him, and what he's kind of been able to bring to the table at that defensive tackle spot, and especially now that Mario's out?
Yeah, he. I would say I feel like Tim's attacked that process really well. Just from, when he had the injury and then like just working back and working into shape and all those things. And I feel like the more that we've played him, the more trust he's earned and the more production he's had. He's, I think from our evaluation of Tim in the free agency process, bringing him in, felt like he was a good system fit, just stylistically. He's a big body, but he's got some pretty good movement skills for a bigger D tackle. And, he's just, again, I think I've said this a lot, it takes a while just to really be consistent in those techniques that we're asking you to do. And if you haven't played this style before, there's a learning curve and a growth period. And then for him to miss some of that time early, you lose some of those reps, So I think just watching the progression through the season, I think he's just banking some of those reps and the consistency of how we're asking him to play and how we're asking him to rush, and those things have sort of grown. And so he's really kind of growing into that role.
From the Indianapolis Colts since the first time you all played them?
Yeah, they're winning ball games, obviously, very similar. There's obviously a little bit of a stylistic change with when Joe was in there for a few games, and then Richardson coming back last week. So, probably very similar, like expecting Taylor to be back and the run game. I was joking. I think he's like top 20 in the league, even though he's only played like 4 games, and he's like 6th in the league in yards per game. So when he's in there, obviously he's a dynamic player, and then the run element, our first game, Richardson had more rushing yards, so he got out a couple times on us. So obviously, I think first and foremost, like just attacking the run game for us and being good there, and then let that sort of filter out to everything else.
Last year, of course, almost every press conference we asked you about Will Anderson Jr.
Mm-hmm.
This year it's Kalen Bullock. How much have you just seen him?
You don't want to talk about Will?
Nah.
Yeah, Kalen's similar, right? Like I would say the reasons that we brought him in and we were excited about drafting him and making him part of the program and part of the organization, that it's showing up. He's working at it. He's working his craft. And he's got a unique skill set. We knew that coming in terms of him being able to play sort of in the deeper part of the field, and he's got great range and great instincts back there and overlapping. And as probably anything in this league, it's all about the ball and about attacking the ball, and he's got a knack for that. So I think that's been the fastest way for him to earn a spot in the field. But again, he just keeps growing in his knowledge and awareness, and anyone that can go get us the ball is gonna have a chance to play football for us.
Trey, D'Amico mentioned he might be rusty. What'd you think of his, I guess, debut and moving forward?
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair assessment. Like, I appreciated the toughness I talked about when you asked last week. I mean, the first thing, I mean, he's a tough dude and he plays hard, and so that's a starting point for anything that we do. I would just say there's probably a little bit of rust in some of the rush stuff and things, and he'll probably be the first to tell you that. So I think probably similar to the Settle question, like the more he just keeps going, and I mean, he hadn't played football in 12 months or 11 months, whatever that was. So I think the more he just gets that under his feet and kind of gets those reps and grows it in our system, like I think he'll be getting better and better. I know he's motivated this week for sure.
Kamari Lassiter back. What's that mean?
John's next, man. Sorry, go ahead.
Sure.
No, after you.
What did it mean for you guys to get Kamari back on the field after a couple weeks out?
Yeah, obviously, starter for us early in the season, so getting a starting level defensive back in the fold for us, and the toughness and competitiveness that he brings, and happy for him. He really, again, another guy that really attacked these last 2 weeks. In terms of I think the same toughness and mental fortitude that he brings to playing ball was the same thing with dealing with this little setback here, and really pushed, probably wanted to play 2 weeks ago. We were holding him back from getting out there. So excited for him to hopefully get back out and show what he can do.
Josh Downs obviously wasn't there week 1.
Yep.
But how does his addition along with John Taylor help expand what the Colts are able to do offensively?
Yeah, he's a really good slot player and really features in there. And then they just do a lot. I think he adds, an element with just some of the motion and the bubble stuff and the RPOs and the jet sweeps and those sort of things too. Like, they're just trying to get the ball in his hands, some of the perimeter screens and those sort of things. So that's just spreads you out a little bit more, another kind of width of the field to sort of have to attack or have to defend. So he's a really good player with the ball in his hands. So they're finding ways to try to make that happen and get him the ball in space. So I think it just probably more stretches you out horizontally more than anything. And again, just where they have all those deep shots, I think it's probably the same thing with Taylor. They're an offense that's built around explosives, and obviously we saw in our first game. So then you have those underneath players that, if that's taken away, if too many guys are out of there, if there's too much space in the underneath areas of the field or in the run game, if you're too worried about sitting back and then there's space underneath, and those are two players that can obviously take advantage of some of that space. So we have to be in the right spots to handle that.
You went in last week's game down 4 starters. How impressed were you with just that next man up mentality on everybody being able to just rally around that?
Yeah, I'll be honest. It's great. But those are our expectations. We talk about all the time. If you're on the team and you have a chance to play, we expect you to perform at the level that's our standard. So, happy that those guys did, but I wouldn't say I was surprised. That's what we expect from those guys, and whoever steps on the field for us, there's a level of a standard of how we want to compete and how we want to play, and those guys did a good job, but it wasn't good enough. So hopefully we can come on top this week. Cool, sure, guys.
we got to play way better than week 1. Can't wait to get to this game and find a way to help in the third phase and factor to beat the Colts. So excited for Sunday.
When did you realize,
Go ahead. Sorry.
when did you realize that loophole in the rule book, and how are you guys able to kind of exploit it and be able to get them to get the ball at 25?
I'm assuming you're talking about the 50-yard line kick. As soon as it came out, it was one of the first things that I said when we were kind of idea generation going on, the rule. I said, a plus 50 kickoff is a big-time advantage for the kicking team in coverage after they foul. So if you kick it through the end zone, why is the touchback line the same? I said waive the 30-yard line touchback, make it to the 20 like an ace, or if it rolls through the landing zone. I said, why don't we make that the rule? No, we just keep it the same. I said, all right, well, kick it out of bounds. Split the difference. Put the ball at the 25. Who wouldn't do that? So we had that from right away.
When you asked when you told Kaimi to be aggressive, what were y'all hoping to do?
You're saying on the kickoff?
Yeah, I understand. Like y'all saying, like, all right, be aggressive on here. Were you trying to kick it at a certain spot?
Yeah. So if you kick it out of bounds, like anywhere north of the landing zone, is what we're talking about. So you have to make sure you put it in the spot that is legally out of bounds at the 20-yard line, or through the landing zone and out of bounds. Then it's 25 yards from the spot of the kick. Normal line would be the 35, so that goes to the 40. So from the 50, that goes to the 25. So we just making sure we hit it in the right spot. That was all. Yeah, that's what I meant by that there.
What goes into the decision of when to let Tank Dell return punts and when to not have Tank Dell return punts?
Just every single thing, and be like, hey, which receivers are playing on third down on this play? Are we in nickel, dime, base? Just relative to the flow of the game, relative to what type of punt return situation we're in, that type of thing.
Tommy said after the game that he felt really good about that game and that he knew that he had to be aggressive and do something to help the team out this week. What did you see from him?
Yeah, well said by him, and I agree with everything. And happy that he finally, hit multiple punts smooth and pure. I think I've been asked about that a few times. Look, Tommy's he's a top-tier dynamic punter, okay? And for him to go out and just, prove to himself more than anything, just to stay consistent is all that it took. So hoping that, that is a springboard for him moving forward. So really happy with the performance from him last week.
Would you say individually that was y'all's best complete special teams performance of the season?
Yeah, we got to be better. We got to be better. I mean, there's so many freaking yards left out on that table. Like, so many yards left out there in the return game. Game of inches. We get a takeaway. What can we get a shoestring tackle. Can we get a knockback and a punch out? Can we, Damian on the kick return, probably our best execution on a design kick return, and then he broke a tackle and shot out the backside there a little bit. Can we hold it a little bit more and it creases all the way through on the front side? So all those things, and you guys know this, like, nothing's pure, but when you can get as close to you can as that on every single one, yeah. And then look, we got to find a way to factor. I mean, kickers are making every kick against us. We got to find a way to factor. So can it always be better? The answer is 100% yes. We need to be better to win this game on Sunday.
Impact of the rules, the end of the game where it goes to the 30 and the other team has the ball and they just have to get in field goal range. Is that like perhaps something that y'all need to maybe think about?
I understand what you're asking there. I think every kick will determine based on the situation and who's returning, who's covering, how we've covered to that point, how much time is on the clock for sure, what type of wind we are. So if you felt it was blowing one side much harder than the other. That's why Green Bay chose to finish going towards the kind of the tunnel there and have the wind at their back in the fourth quarter. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
That's okay. You got a couple of your returners back at practice. You've had a lot of returners, participate this year. How much does it help to have some continuity and to try to get these guys back and kind of maybe have the same punt returner?
Yeah, I think that it doesn't matter who's back there. Honestly, I like having a stable of guys back there because this is the NFL and who's playing 17 games anymore? It's a hard business. So having a bunch of reliable guys is most important. But to your point about continuity, I think anybody, whether you're a pass rusher, you want to just, hey, by the third quarter, I really have a feel for how that's, and I've seen this punt twice now. So I think just kind of flow of the game, starting fast and finishing strong is, a key for every position, let alone a returner. So I'm hoping for a great return game execution this Sunday.
Have you seen anything different from the Colts since you played them in Week 1?
Yeah, it's a sound unit. Man, they're playing really sound. They're rushing punts. Their return game has ticked up because of how aggressive they've been at the line of scrimmage. They were using Josh Downs a ton, and that guy is, he's a wiggly runner. He's not just a track runner. You got Mims who's running the stable or running the whole track around everybody. You have some guys that are sticking their foot in the ground and cutting through. This guy is knows how to use your momentum against you better than most. So he's got some really good creative running. We got to find a way to bottle him up and create a good long field position for our defense.
One more question about last week. Coming into that game, Jaden Reed had been talked about how good of a returner he was, how good he was, especially what did you see from your team being able to basically contain him on Sunday?
Yeah, I think a couple things. So first off, he is a dynamic mover. Notice that there's some setup things going on, setting under the ball. I think that has been a topic up there, but it doesn't matter who's back there, honestly. Every returners are going to play different. So if you have a guy that's going to run side to side or vertical relative to how you're releasing at the line of scrimmage, but for example, he's a guy who can stop, start, and cut and reverse field. So you have to have somebody that's stacking and ready to leverage the ball for when he makes the first man miss this way or that way, and you're ready to make that expansion tackle. I think Hairston had a really good example of that. And then obviously Kadar's, dynamic tackle down there inside of the 5-yard line for a backed up opportunity. So every time you step on the grass, there's always new challenges every week. We got a divisional opponent and biggest game of the year. Got to be ready to play. See you guys.